Happy Wine Wednesday, everyone. I'm so sorry. You're going to have to give me a moment. Hang on. Happy Wine Wednesday, everyone. I hope you're having a fabulous week. Holly, can you introduce everybody here? My girls' feedback is coming through my AirPods, so all I'm hearing is like Xbox. So introduce us. Give me 10 seconds. I'll be right back, and we'll get the convo started.
All right, I'll try. So I'm here with Ray and Cheryl, waiting for Kelly to come back. I honestly don't have anything new to discuss with my seahorses. Do either of you?
Not with my seahorses, but I had one yesterday. The owner was actually stateside, and she had had seahorses for a year and a half. And all of a sudden, she's got two seahorses that were dead. No markings on them, no evidence of vibrio lesions or anything like that. What ultimately came out as I went through almost 45 minutes with her is the first seahorse that passed was a wild-caught seahorse that she had just recently bought and added to the tank. And the problem was they all of a sudden just stopped eating and dropped dead. And at first, she was going through all the things she has in her tank and stuff, but it wasn't until toward the very end that she told me that she'd added this wild-caught seahorse. And it appears to be a parasitic infection, is my best guess from what she was telling me, based on how the seahorses responded, and how quickly they passed. And I explained to her that if she has any more problems, she needs to look into doing a freshwater dip, and I can give her that information and basically see how they respond, because if this thing is that pathogenic, it could wipe out all her seahorses if she's not careful. And I explained that.
Deworming.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did see. I was just reading that actually on the Facebook page where she was talking about that. And yeah, finally, when she mentioned the wild caught, I was like, oh, I bet that's the problem. It brought something in.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. And depending on how well off her other seahorses are, how strong they are, they may get through it, they may not. And I actually ended up sending her a friend's request and told her, if you have any more problems, message me directly, because this is something that can be potentially very serious.
Mm-hmm. And I missed everything.
Seahorse,
I missed everything you guys were talking about. I'm sorry if at the very beginning, literally as soon as it started to go live, all I could hear is like shoot, sounded like a game, and I don't know, I disconnected the AirPods. So happy Wine Wednesday. And there's a hair on my back. Happy Wine Wednesday. Hope your takes are great. You're doing well. If you're on Instagram, don't forget see the video and be able to talk back and forth with us. Let's jump on over to YouTube, search Seahorse Whisperer, and we'll be the first thing up. I think, Holly, did you already say we've got Ray, Cheryl, and Holly with us tonight?
Yeah, I did. I did that part, and then Cheryl was talking about
the
wild
issue.
Right. Well, I want to say hi, Melinda. Hi, Salty. Hi, Shyla. Hi, Tyann. Hi, everybody in the audience. It's open chat tonight. I know Ray has some. I think I just cut Cheryl off, so we need to let her finish. And then it's really, if you guys have anything going on in your tanks or have any questions you want us to discuss, it's community hour. Hi, Zen. Glad you're here too. Glad to have you here. Okay. So Cheryl, did I cut you off or finished that you're just going to wait?
No, I was just, I wish she had told us up front that she just added a new wild-caught male, because that would have made it so much easier. So her tank, she's in Florida, her tank got up to 76 during the hurricane when they lost power. And I explained to her that is a critical, and I explained to her why 74 is a critical number that we use.
Absolutely.
And hopefully she doesn't lose any more. And if she does start having problems, she will contact me directly, because she has my information.
Good.
I feel sorry. She was just totally scared.
Sure.
But it's still possible that it might be an internal bacterial infection that the heat exacerbated the problem, and they were lost in a hurry from that. But for that to happen, it had to have been on the way to that before the hurricane came and the temperature rose. It had to be sort of borderline, and maybe the bacterial infection had already started internally, and the heat just kind of finished it off. That's a possibility, but I like the parasite explanation first, but it's something without autopsy type of thing. There's no way we're going to know.
Well,
I explained that to her.
I agree, but disagree, because the thing is, I had a similar situation happen to me with captive bred seahorses. You know, the tank was great. It was seahorses I had raised from babies, and basically, I don't use heaters or chillers because I just keep my house at a temperature where the tank between like 68 and 72, and I don't let it. Like Dan has talked repeatedly about the fact that it's not even, we focus on stay beneath 74, but the real problems happen when there's a spike, or spike one way drastically, right? So if you have a tank that you keep at 74, you can be fine. You might have to keep your water cleaner because bacteria grow faster in warmer tanks. But in my central air stopped working while I was at work. Had no idea. Came home, and my tank that was usually 69, 70 was at like 78. Okay. And I was like, oh shit. And I didn't know any better. And so I tried to drastically reduce the temp quickly. Obviously I got the central air working again. And then, used ice packs and all this stuff floating in the water to lower the temperature, because I was so afraid I wanted to get beneath 74. And the seahorses within a couple of weeks all had a bacterial infection. There's a video on it. I'll link and put it in the description. But I did a video on how I treated them with triple sulfa and Furon 2. But with Dan's help, I figured that's what happened. It was the temp spike. So I mean, I agree, Ray. My tank probably wasn't the best. It was the first time I was raising fry, and I actually had like sand and macros in this fry tank. They were juveniles. They were already weaned onto frozen, but 3 of them, and all 3 of them got sick as heck, and I had bacterial infection because of the temp spike. So just remember, if you ever come home and something's gone wrong, your chiller quit working or whatever, your heater went, whatever. If your seahorse tank, if the temperature has risen drastically, don't freak out. Just slowly let it come down on its own. Don't do it drastically. Watch them for the next month. Maybe do some extra water changes to make sure there's no bacterial buildup, because they're also because the temp spike stresses them out, because they don't know why the water's all of a sudden warmer, and it's like it stresses them. We've already talked about their immune systems suck, and so then you turn around and they've got a problem. But I made that mistake, so I thought I'd share. I hope nobody else ever do anything drastic with seahorses.
Well,
don't beat yourself up so much, because back when you were doing that, knowledge wasn't at the level that it's at now. For God's sake, when I started back 2002 and 2003, we were still recommending very slow water flow. And I certainly had my share of mishaps and losses of seahorses, and it sure changed once the hobby finally realized that the water just has to be cleaner. There has to be more flow. So many different things have changed since then. But fortunately, we had the seahorse.org that we could use to communicate with people all around, and the word spread and things started getting better. So now,
now we have Seahorse Sources group, though. Now we have Seahorse Sources group. I know a lot of people don't like Facebook because you can ask a question and 5 million people pile on. But we talked about this before. The biggest advice I can give to anybody new, I see Zen Ginger is thinking about starting Seahorses. We're so glad to have you here. Definitely jump in and join Seahorse Sources group. And we're going to talk a little bit about Ray's site and a site we're going to put up soon. But I'm jumping around, but the best advice I can give anyone is after you join Seahorses group, go to the files section, because there are files on tank setup, why flow needs to be higher, why, some of the things you hear are wrong. And the other piece of advice we always say is when you go to any groups, watch first, right? Try to join these groups before you have a problem, before you set up, because you can kind of tell when you see who the admin are, who post all the time. Like, I don't post all the time, but I used to. But I'm just saying, you can end up figuring out who you should listen to, and you'll also see that whenever somebody asks a question, you get questions back at them. And we've talked endlessly about not taking offense, because it's really like, well, she went through trying to help this person with her seahorses and didn't find out until so many questions later that she had just added a wild-caught male, right? So, or the temperature or whatever. So it's really hard to diagnose a problem just by, oh, my seahorse is sick. What do I do? But anyway, Sarah Ginger, definitely glad to have you here. Definitely, I will put a link to Seahorse Sources group. I think it's already in every description, but I'll make sure if not. And I did add that Cheryl just talked about the fact that the hurricane in Florida, Dan's in Florida. So we'll be doing Ask Seahorse Source Part 4 soon. I'm still planning it, guys. It's just he's had a lot on his plate. There was a hurricane, work, So we're still trying to nail down the date. I will let you know when we get it. Also anybody new, you should go and on C2, search for Ask Seahorse Source. There's a part 1, 2, and 3 where Dan covers so much knowledgeable information. It's really good. And the other thing is, I did reach out to Dr. Tim. Hopefully everybody went and watched Dr. Tim's interview with Tank Talk with Tyann. I get Dr. Tim here because, I'm rambling a bit, but I'm leading into the fact that what we talked about last week and Ray's idea for testing organics, trying to test for organics in a seahorse tank, because we think that that's the major reason that people end up having trouble with seahorses. Is we've always said it's high organics, but you can't test for them. So Ray, why don't you tell us, I'm going to pull up your site and kind of show it, but why don't you tell us what this site is showing us and what's going on?
Well, it's just a page that's on my site.
Okay.
And I just made it today because this all started, I think it was last week. Somehow we got talking about the organics.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure whether that started last week or the week before. With this cognitive impairment problem, things get jumping around. However, I decided then to go on to R2R, the Reef Chemistry Forum, because there's a fellow there, Randy Holmes Farley, that I have a lot of respect for. And he helped me out decades ago when I was putting together my homemade salt water formula. And so I put the query on there. And first off, Randy doesn't think that it's wise to assume that dissolved organics are the problem.
Right.
But in my opinion, whether it is the problem or not, we know that if we control the dissolved organics, that if it's the dissolved organics or if it's something else that is controlled by taking control of the DO, then it works. So if we have a way to measure the DO, then we should be able to improve the odds of success in keeping the seahorses.
Right. So, and before I pulled up your site, I should have showed the test kits you're using. Let me try to pull that up too. But go on, Ray. Sorry. Tell us what we did.
That came from a couple other people on the that were replying on the website. I can't remember the name, something like Taricha or something, and the other one's Dan P, just letter P. And Dan was extremely helpful, explaining that he's done testing using the free chlorine test to determine whether or not his GAC needs replacing. In other words, if the organics are going up, this method that he devised is a way to just check for N-related organic compounds, that is nitrogen related. It's not all dissolved organics, only nitrogen related. However, if there's a significant portion of dissolved organics that are nitrogen, we may have something that we can use that's testable.
Ray, can you send me the link to the test kit again so I can
Oh, I
tell me
don't.
what it was called?
Scroll up. Scroll
It's
up.
Hannah. Yeah,
I found it. Free chlorine
I
test kit,
was
right?
gonna say,
Yeah.
I think it's
I
our
got it.
messenger.
by Hannah. And
Okay.
anyway, so what was explained to me on R2R by this Dan P was that if you make up a solution of bleach so that you can add a portion to this sampling. This sampling is meant like swimming pools and that if you want to know the chlorine level. Okay, but when we're taking water out of a tank, we don't have any chlorine. But the theory is that if we have chlorine in the tank, it's going to be eaten up by the nitrous organic compounds that are in there.
Yeah.
And the rate and the amount that of chlorine that's taken up will have a direct relationship with the amount of organic nitrogen organics.
So in common tongue, basically, this is possibly a way we'll be able to test for organics.
Yeah. So basically, with this test, that vial there, the left side without the color, you take the top off and you put 5 drops of that reagent in the blue cap and 3 of the yellow cap into there. And then you put in an amount of bleach that will give you 1 part per million chlorine in that sample. In my case, I had some 4% bleach, and I took 1 milliliter of that with a 1 ml syringe. I put it into a 1 liter measuring cup that was sitting on a scale. And, the 1 liter, then I topped up to 800 grams, or in other words, it's 800 milliliters.
Wait, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I'm trying to understand. So you put bleach in and then you put tank water in? Is that?
No, not tank water. I put regular distilled, or in my case, I used RODI.
Oh, because you were trying to get a base.
I'm making a stock solution up.
Okay.
Okay, and my target was to get 50 parts per million. Mainly because Dan's suggestion was that he was using 100 part per million stock, and he was taking 0.1 milliliters of that to put into a 10 mil test that he was doing. Well, for me, my test is only 5 ml. And so if I put 0.1 ml of 100 base, then I'm going to have too much chlorine in there.
Okay, but so basically in the beginning of this website, which I will put in the description, you describe exactly what you did, why you did it, and then what did you figure out?
Well, basically, once I had that stock solution of 50, then I could use 0.1 ml of that and put in this sampling. So I put the drops in for the reagent, and then I put in the chlorine, the 0.1 ml of the chlorine, and instantly it turns that dark color you see on the scale there, only it's a little bit darker because I haven't put any sample water in it yet. Okay, and now my first test, I put in new salt water that had only been aged for overnight. And so I did the test with that, and the color come up, and it never changed. It never went away. It stayed the same. And that scale there reads in milligrams per liter. It's at the bottom is 2.5, and then 2,
Mhm.
1.5, 1, and 0.5, so on. And milligrams per liter is the same as parts per million, basically.
Okay.
So when I did this with my solution, and get the color there,
Oh,
you could
sorry.
see that it basically was the color on the scale there at the 1 milligram per liter. So
And what does that mean?
the chlorine never got used up at all.
Okay, so there was no
So there's no
dissolved
organics in there to eat it up.
Okay, got it.
Okay, then I did my tank water. Same procedure.
Oh, okay. I think there's another one.
And the tank water is the second picture. And
Okay.
basically it come up the same way.
Okay.
And this had me all puzzled, and I was expecting to see a result. And I was very frustrated and thinking, well, this isn't going to work. And so I spent hours doing more testing, retesting, trying to figure out what the hell was going on, until I finally realized that if I'm keeping my water the way it should, there won't be any nitrogen organic compounds in there to eat up this chlorine that's been added. And then I started figuring, well, I've got to wait until somebody has a tank that they can test where the organics are high enough to get a result, if possible, just to see what.
So let me interrupt you one more time. So what we need is a lot of people to do these tests, and especially people if you're having trouble in your tank to do, because if we see a bigger change, know that it is dissolved organics that's the problem, right?
Well, yeah, but at this point, well, I was kind of hesitant to even start recommending that because I wasn't sure this was going to work. Even though
Okay.
these are very knowledgeable experts on R2R that were helping me. They're chemists in their own right. And
So what'd
anyway,
you do?
I went to bed, then I woke up not being able to get back to sleep because I had this thing in my mind about thawing out a flat part of a flat pack of mysis and using the water that comes off from the packaging
Mm-hmm.
to use for the test. Because if anything's got any DO in it, it's going to be that packaging compound.
Absolutely.
Packaging fluids that are in there. So I couldn't sleep anyway, so I got up and thawed out some, and I did a test on it, and I put the 0.1 chlorine in the thing with the reagents, and then I filled up to the 5 ml mark with this mysis water, and the color immediately went from that dark pink to just that cloudy color.
Which means that there's tons of dissolved organics, right?
There was so much nitrogen organic compounds in there that it almost instantly ate up all the chlorine that was in there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now I have no idea what level the DO is in this stuff, but I wanted to get an idea on sensitivity. So I made up some more batches at half RODI water and half
Mysis.
of this mysis water, and I did it 1/4 and I did it 1/10, and doing exactly the same way. So the next one is the 1/4,
And you
and
see that little bit of color.
yeah, with the 1/4 after 5 minutes, it was a slower process. It wasn't so fast.
Okay.
But it was after 5 minutes, you could see that it definitely made a difference. Then doing the 1/10, after 5 minutes, it went from 1 milligram per liter down to 0.5 milligram per liter. So even at 1/10 of the dilution, it was still making a difference on there after a 5-minute wait. So that tells me that if our tanks get anywhere near this kind of dilution or this kind of concentration of DO, then we have a reasonable test to be able to tell us something. But
Yep.
I have no way to know what the levels of the DO in this water is. And obviously we don't know what the DO levels in our tanks are because it's too damn expensive to send away that test to get them tested.
But so if a bunch of different people do this on their tanks at different points, like when your tank's going well, you just do a test. And we're going to try to come up with a database.
I would recommend if somebody wants to spend the money on the kit, I don't know how much it is in the States there. Here in Canada, it cost me $30 plus the shipping. So, and the taxes and all that come in, I think, $53. And it's supposed to be good for about 50 tests. Well, I've used about 25 or 30 of the tests already now because I was screwing around so much, partly because my mind wasn't reading the advice from R2R, wasn't reading it and getting the proper understanding of what they were saying.
Right.
And once I got that in line, then things started coming easier. So it takes a bit of time to feel comfortable doing the test. But now that it's being done, it's easier to advise somebody how to do it. And they shouldn't have the kind of problems that I had starting out. And most people don't have cognitive impairment like I do. So that should make
So
it
where
easy.
we're at.
So if you get enough of those people willing to do that, spend the money and do the testing, then I would suggest they start, first of all, testing new salt water just to see how it gets there. But they're going to have to use bleach of known concentration and then be able to calculate how to determine the level that they're going to come up with to use in their sample. And that's something, all bleaches are different. And most of them now in Canada here, they don't mark it on the bottle anymore. So I have no name sold by Loblaws here, which is the biggest grocery store chain. I had to contact them to find out, and they told me that it was 4%. With Clorox, they used to put it on the bottle. They no longer do. So I contacted their website, and it stated 8.25. And
so we're
for
gonna
my
have to,
purposes, I just used the 4 because it was easier for my calculations. Now, it's still, like, it doesn't matter what the strength is because we can still come up with the proper formula. And I guess basically I would have to find a generic formula to put down so people can plug in the figures to come up with a determination.
well, I'm gonna set up the database. So anybody out there, tell your friends. We'll post about it in Seahorse Sources group if you're willing. I'll find a place to get it in the U.S. too. I gotta do
I
that.
was gonna say, let's
I'm
get this.
looking at it on my phone. I see one. It's the Hannah kit for $20 here in the U.S. But what's interesting to me is it has a different whatever those numbers are, model number. I usually call it H13831F is the one that Ray is using. And this one has a different, looks like the same thing, but that number is different. It says H13829F. So does it come in different strengths and things?
Well, that's my
Amazon.
wait, hang on, that's my next task. I'm reaching out to Dr. Tim, and I'm going to reach out to Hannah now, try to get either the information or someone to come on and talk to us to see if they're the same. And see if we could get someone from Hannah here, that'd be great, because then we could talk about and ask their thoughts on it and etc. But I will contact them either way and try to get some answers for us. And I will also set up the database, so be watching for that. And then when people do, if anybody who's willing to do these tests, if we can plug them in, then we can start trying to get some answers, And I understand, Ray, we'll have to come up with a formula for the bleach concentration and all that. We want to be thorough, but this could be a game changer.
Well, there's probably a lot of hobbyists already know how to do that kind of calculations.
Sure.
But if not, it's available on the web. And just understand that in my case, the 4% bleach means there's 40,000 parts per million bleach in there. So if I take 1 milliliter of that and dilute it to 800 milliliters, or in my case, I weigh it because I don't have proper graduated cylinders. So weighing is the most accurate for me. So 1 ml in 800. So it's 1 over 800 times 40,000 comes up to 50.
Right. So you got to do your calculations, and you tell us how on this site.
I do see there is a difference. There's multiple free chlorine test kit strengths.
Exactly.
So the one that Ray used, I put in that exact number and it came up with extended range. It's called. So there's like a regular range and an extended range, I guess. So you have to be sure and get the right one, apparently.
This is the one that was recommended to me on R2R.
Yeah.
Perfect. So yeah, you need to check that number when you're looking at the HANA kits, because they have multiple versions of the free chlorine test kit.
Well, one thing too you need to keep in mind is different concentrations of different chemicals vary by country. So because I can get one thing doesn't mean Ray can go out and, even using the same brand, that he's going to get the same kit that I had.
Well, that's why I'm gonna reach out to them and ask all these questions and find out, how to get the exact same one so that we can do a really good comparison. Because
this is on their website. HANA has their own site where you can order from. So that's where I found it.
Well, I'll try to pull that up. And I would just say too, that this could be good for the clownfish people. This could be good for reef tank people. I mean, you can send your water away for testing and get this information, but it's so expensive. So if we can find a way to come up with some scales and some numbers, that's going to be very helpful to everybody in the hobby, is my thoughts.
Yeah, we have no way to know what the relationship is between N organic compounds and all dissolved organic compounds. But in our case, we're just looking for something that can give us some guidelines on when to do something about our water quality. And while the test is meant to measure chlorine, specifically things like swimming pools, that kind of thing, or other water treatment systems, we don't have any chlorine in there because our tanks would be dead if there was. The reason we don't have it is because the dissolved organics are using it up.
Yep.
So if we add a measured amount, in other words, this 1 part per million into this sample, and if we get a reaction, now if we can compare on our tanks from our starting salt water, like before it gets used in the tank, and then do some testing when the tank is running fine and no problems. Theoretically, you shouldn't find anything. But then if you have bacterial infection, we especially want to know what the result is then.
Yeah.
For instance, if you always get the same result as testing just new salt water, in other words, the color stays and it doesn't go away, then if there's all of a sudden a change, and over a 5-minute period it's getting a little bit lighter, and it goes from 1 milligram per liter down to 0.5 or even less, if it happens at the time that there's bacterial infections coming there, then your tank is likely going to be such that you got to do testing, and if it starts getting near to that point, you got to do something about it before it actually gets that bad.
Right.
Does that
It's
make
a,
sense?
the preventative, but it can having everybody test, and especially people that might be having problems. Like I'm definitely in, and I only currently have 2 tanks running, but I'm still hoping for babies, guys. And I can even see like getting into looking at the details of each tank and why maybe there's difference. And Tyann said, Tyann, I want to definitely talk about it, but Tyann said, I hear is an IC
Oh,
may be available here in the US soon with a 72-hour turnaround time at a cost that is less than what we use now. Cool.
That's still nowhere
I
near
do
what this
see.
test is going to be if it works.
I do
Right.
see the reagents. You can buy just the reagents for $13
Yeah,
Cool.
that's after you have
here in
the
the US.
you
original
have to
test
be
kit.
careful and double check
Yeah.
the numbers in terms of the how much is in each bottle, because it's going to change between countries, between suppliers,
Yeah.
and you're going to have to watch that very carefully to be sure you're all using the same thing. You're also going to have to remind yourself, just because something is now consuming the dissolved organics, what is happening in the tank that now has all these organisms that are consuming dissolved organics, because that in itself could be another trigger for other problems.
Sure. And Holly was talking last week about how if Randy Holmes or if he's right, and it was Randy Holmes Farley, right? That's who you talked to, Ray?
Yeah,
Okay, so Holly was saying last week, maybe if he's right, and because he's the one that he didn't agree that the dissolved organics are what we need to watch out for, and that's what's possibly causing bacterial problems in our seahorses. So if he's right, I mean, Holly was saying last week it could be something else that's happening alongside the organics. But I mean, this is still just a way to try to dig and figure it out. So I appreciate Ray. I do want to say before we go on that yes, Tyann, I'm so excited too. I will be for anybody out there that's like this stuff is way over your head. You're like, what are you talking about dissolved organics? And you just wanted to come here and hear about seahorses. This stuff is very valuable and important. But if you're looking for the basic for just somebody to talk seahorses, I will be on Tank Talk with Tyann. Looks like this Tuesday. I didn't realize it was coming so quick, but I'll do this Tyann to nail down the questions and the time and stuff.
Yeah.
And if there's a post, definitely tag me so I can share it around. So go to Tank Talk with Tyann Tuesday because I'd love to have you guys backing me up. If there's a question I can't answer, if you guys are in the comment section, you can help me. All right. Anyways, go on. I'm sorry. I just had to get that out there before we went.
I just wanted to add, it's kind of like ammonia cycling a tank. If you don't know the concentration of the ammonia you're putting in, you can
Right.
do things like end up with 200 parts per million of ammonia, and been there, done that. And it takes a little longer for the tank to cycle when you make a mistake like that.
Oh, yeah.
And it's easy. You have to be careful when you're using these test kits to very carefully verify your concentrations. Just an FYI.
the one good thing about this test kit, if you've made a mistake in your stock solution, and when you make up or when you add whatever you have to add, you want to add small amount only to this test kit of the chlorine, because the more you put in there, the less sample water is going to be in there. So what was recommended to me was the 0.1 ml, and so that seemed reasonable when I'm looking at 5 overall, and then there's a total of 8 drops otherwise going in there. So I deliberately made mine at 50 parts per million. Now I lost my train of thought again.
Well, that's okay. I was just going to say too that I mean, again, like when they're talking about this stuff, when Ray's telling me 10 parts per million and 5 IPC and blah 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 blah, that's like way over my head. So I'm going to figure it out on my end, like the U.S. pricing. Talk to Hannah, make sure we got the right strength and all that stuff. Check the bleach, and I'll talk to Ray on the side, and I'll use his website to see what and then we can dive into the details a bit more.
Well,
If you are just making a 1 part per million in the sample itself, then when you go through this testing, and if it's with new salt water, it should be full color for 1 milligram per liter, which is 1 part per million. So if you've mixed something up wrong and you've got 2.5, yours is the shade of the 2.5 milligrams per liter, you've done something wrong. Or
Gotcha.
conversely, if there's hardly any color at all, and definitely less than the 1 milligram per liter, you just don't have enough on it. So you got to start all over then with your making your stock solution and what you have to add to your sample.
Well, once I get the test kit, I'll let you guys know how it went for me and how difficult it actually was, and etc. And Diane, I did not see the tag. I said she posted earlier today about me being on Tank Talk with Diane Tuesday. So I will share it, and everybody, all you guys that are watching, please help me share it around so that we can get folks to come and talk seahorses. But
one other thing
anyhow,
we need to establish is at this point in time, we do not know what levels of denatured organics are acceptable in seahorses and what levels can prove lethal. So we also need to experiment and find out how the different levels impact the seahorses. As much as I hate to say
well,
it,
that's the whole point. That's the whole point of this.
the scientist in me is kicking in again.
Yeah, but
And
that's the whole point of Ray wanting a database of different people testing at different times. And then he said we won't have an answer. This is just the start of it, just to gather the data, right? So I agree, Cheryl.
Right now, we're shooting in the dark and looking for numbers. Bottom line.
Right.
Yeah.
So Holly, I'll get that Hannah site from you later, and I will reach out to them and see if we can't get them here, or at least I'll get some answers for us. And then when I get the database set up, and make sure everybody shares it around, we'll put it in Seahorses group and try to get this. Sounds good. And I am still here every week. I just I'm dealing with kids and significant other and everything else. That's why I sometimes go black, but I'm still here. Go ahead, Cheryl.
Can you imagine being able to set up a seahorse tank without a skimmer that's rated to 2 to 3 times the total water volume, and then not have to run these giant skimmers in your sumps and stuff like that?
I can't imagine. No.
It would be nice.
I don't know if we'll ever get that many answers, but I mean, Ray, go ahead.
There was one other thing brought up on R2R today. In order to test the actual reaction of this kit here, if you want to see it and your tank is like mine where it's not showing bad, take some skim mate if you have a skimmer and use some of that skim mate for your sample, because that skim mate will have DO in it, and then you'll see the clearing of the color and know more or less what to expect. And you can, depending on how it is, you might be able to dilute some of that skim mate and see how it works for just a weak solution, where it just partially turns the color lighter, or whether, like that's full strength, that it wipes the color out real fast. Also, you might, if you have flat backs of mysis, you might, when you're doing the thawing on it, you might take some juice from that, give that a try. Anything at all to put some dissolved organics in, just so you can actually see something of how the test kit is going to show when the water is bad, so you know in advance.
Well, that's what's going to be seriously interesting to me, is if anyone does have a seahorse with a bacterial problem and they test, and if there's nothing, that would be really interesting. I mean, I can't imagine that would be
if there's
the case,
nothing, then we're in trouble.
Yeah.
Right.
One of the problems with this also is going to be there's more. Dissolved organics are not the only source of bacterial infections. We know that.
No.
And so what's going to keep people from assuming that they have a problem with dissolved organics when in reality they have a bacterial infection? That's going to be another
Wait, what?
you test your water, and you got a sick seahorse, and you test your water for dissolved organics. Nothing comes back, or maybe something does come back. But which caused it? Was it the actual bacterial infection, or was it the dissolved organics that were creating the problem?
Well, I think in most of our cases, any bacterial infection is almost exclusively due to water conditions allowing that bacterial level to get up high enough. I don't think it's very common that you're going to have a bacterial infection when you have excellent water.
Agreed.
Even if we could test for the DO, I don't think you're going to find many where DO is low and bacteria is high.
Yeah,
brand new Seahorse.
The thing is, I guess what all I'm saying is there's other infections or problems that seahorses can get that have nothing to do with dissolved organics. It may ultimately be what kills them, but it's not what initiates the problem.
You're saying bacterial infections are often secondary, right? You're saying bacterial infections are often secondary. True. I get that point. I still think this is a good thing to, because we'd be able to figure that out, I think, based on the symptoms.
Yeah. That's going to take a while to get a handle on.
Yeah, it's not going to be something that we're going to know in the next year.
It's not going to happen overnight.
Well, that's why my butt needs to overnight get the website and database up. But I will. I'll try. It might not be overnight, but especially since I've got to be ready for Tank Talk with Tyann on Tuesday. That's like 5 keys, man. You're tongue twisting me. But anyways, I'm glad you got it going, Ray. Got us started on this path. That's fantastic.
Well, I'm going to give you an odd example of what I'm talking about, how weird things can get. Years ago, and I was volunteering at a veterinary teaching hospital and then at San Antonio Zoo. And we had a problem with certain parrots coming in, and they were picking their feathers. Mm-hmm. Well, we were assuming that there was some kind of pathogen that was causing the problem, that they were pulling their feathers out. Ultimately, we found out the most common cause was stress. Put them in a quiet area, keep things quiet, don't hassle them, let them adjust, and they'd grow their feathers back and be nice, happy birds. If we intervened and started stressing them, we came close to 100% mortality.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So
well, that's why I'm so thankful for Ray coming up with these ideas and such.
Yeah.
And as Ray and Cheryl both said, back when people first started with seahorses, they thought they needed low flow. You still see that advice out there. Oh, they need a really low flow tank. All that crap. And thank God.
I didn't come up with the ideas.
What?
I didn't come up with these ideas.
I know.
I come up with the inclination to post and ask for help. And then I got help, and now I'm just passing on the help.
And your buddies,
we won't give you any credit, but I'm just saying you guys deserve a lot of credit in the seahorse world for the years of figuring things out. We wouldn't even know that a double-rated skimmer could help, and we didn't. Now we're working with the Robert King chart chambers, and testing that out and trying to find out how that's going to help. And we're just making it easier for people to start with seahorses. Like when I first started and knew nothing, I made so many darn mistakes, and then I met you fine folks, and now I'm helping other people when I can, and it's a passing on thing. Go ahead, Ray.
I also found out on this thread something I didn't know before.
Yes.
Randy Holmes Farley says not all dissolved organics are skimmable.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's it. Right.
But all dissolved organics are removable with
carbon.
GAC.
GAC. Huh. Well, that'll be interesting to see. Now, somebody help me out here because I'm not good with the chemistry stuff, but I'm interested in how, like what Aquachar removes, because GAC removes. What does GAC remove, you guys? Isn't that for phosphates?
Well, it removes all organic compounds for sure.
Oh,
but what else? I don't know for sure. But I suspect that the chart is going to remove the same things that the GAC is. I don't think, if GAC can remove it, Charles will remove it.
Well, and the thing is with the GAC, I'm sorry guys, it's been a minute since I used GAC, but isn't there a fear of leaching or did
Well, if you let it go too long, and this is why we have the possibility of this test working. The fellows on R2R, two of them specifically, worked out a test to try and find a way to know when the GAC was used up.
Right.
Time to replace it. Okay, and that's how this thing developed in the first place.
Gotcha.
And so when I posted, then they said, well, I could use this test to find these N organic compounds, and that would possibly give me some relationship that might be of some value in rating the quality of the water for seahorses.
Yeah. See, one of the problems we have right now is we still don't really have a handle on how much of what we need to have in the tank to keep a pristine environment. And I mean, it was a lot worse 15 plus years ago.
Right.
It's gotten much better, but we're still, in many instances, flying blind to work with them.
Yeah. On the other hand, how many people today is healthy, happy, and jolly because we know so much today? So, I mean, it's just a progressive thing. We keep learning more.
Agreed.
But thank goodness for all of you guys so many years. So now someone like, what was it, Zen guy? I'm sorry, I lost the comment. The Zen Ginger. Now the Zen Ginger can set up with no problem, which obviously he has experience in other tanks. But Seahorse tanks are different than, keeping a reef or keeping other fish. Like Tyann and I have talked about, clownfish, raising clownfish babies is very similar in many ways. But the differences, and with seahorses, I said at the very beginning of this, we just got to have really good clean water, because I mean, we're going to hopefully determine how these N compounds and mix are affecting things, but dang it, just set up right and high flow, not high flow, but varied flow, and keep the temp under 74, all those key things, and we learned them from you guys, so thanks. And Miss Holly, I know you have a toothache. Was there anything you wanted to? We've kind of been chatting the whole time. Anything new with you?
No, I don't have anything new this week.
Okay. All right. Well, what else? Anybody in the comment section got any questions? I've been trying to make these Wine Wednesdays shorter. We usually go. I cut it off at 10, but we can definitely end early if we need to. And Ray just left. Uh-oh. I wonder if he did it on purpose. I don't know. But maybe he thought I was saying bye.
He pushed the wrong button.
I wasn't.
Yeah, probably.
I'll let him back in. And Vincent, I did see you out there at one point. If you're still here, sorry I didn't get a chance to say hi. We were deep in conversation. But if anybody wants to jump in, anybody has any questions, now's the time. Don't forget to check out Tank Talk with Tyann on Tuesday. Let's see. I can read a message here.
One of the posts that Ray made was, I'm personally not concerned about reef fish, parasites and bacteria. In fact, reef fish, I'm more concerned with the ones, obviously, because that infect seahorses.
Sure.
And that's another thing we need to carefully watch is, do we need an apex gold or something like that versus just really good husbandry and assuming that we have to clean our tanks? We don't need the machine necessarily to tell us. We don't even at this point, I don't think anybody's ever done enough research with seahorses to determine what would be the apex parameters for a seahorse tank.
Right.
And maybe we're missing something huge there too.
Yep. And I mean, but the more advanced we get too, I do have to say this, because I've said this before. When I first got the Robert King charge chamber and put it in, and we've talked about this for many weeks, that all of a sudden my water was so pristine that I would go up to the tank on water change day and be like, there's no film on the glass. It looks great. Maybe I can skip. And that's what you can't skip. You don't need you don't need a text to tell you this, that, and the other. I mean, it might be very helpful, but I just know I have to keep clean water.
Yeah,
Right?
they're great until one of the alarms goes off and you're on vacation and your best friend is an hour and a half away and is telling you that the tank is leaking and you get there and it's a malfunction.
Right. Right.
I'm just saying there's so many different ways to do it. And we've come so far in the last 15 plus years, and we've got so much farther, so much more work to do to improve our skills more.
Right. Well, thank God for captive bred breeders. Thank God for the Seahorse sources group file section and people like you. And the Zen Ginger said that you know very little. Your husband kept saltwater puffer and brackish mud skippers. What are mud skippers? Dying to know.
Little bitty legged thingies that run around on the bottom.
Well, I will
My
say,
son.
Zen Ginger, I will say, Zen Ginger, you're in the right place because we're here to help. Any questions you have. I mean, we get into topics that are focused and detailed, but anytime you come to Wine Wednesday, if any question, there's no bad questions. We don't mind going back to the basics. I mean, and we all, we share our experiences. So we love when new people come and they ask questions because then why we're here. We're here to be a community and help each other and other. I mean, we connected with Tyann and others, we have guests sometimes. So anyways, I'm rambling on and on. Anything
I would just really like to see Ray put his presentation that he did here tonight. I would love to see him put that into Seahorse Sources group.
Oh, I can do that. Yeah.
I want to be able to review it because I'm definitely one of the nuts. Hey, my organic chemistry days is actually proving useful 40 years after I did it. And that's a joke. I'm kidding about that. But it's one of those things where it gives me a step by step and I don't have to keep going searching for it because I'll know exactly where to find out.
Sure.
And read through it. Because when you start doing testing like that, each time you run the tests, you need to read it through to make sure you're doing it exactly the same each time, or you're not going to get valid results.
And you guys, Vincent is in Albuquerque visiting family and friends, and he's working using tanks. Son and daughter care of them. Well, that's one of the cases. I mean, we've had a vacation episode before, but we need to have another one because I've told this story before, but I had a mother-in-law taking horses many years ago when we left for a week, and she did perfect the entire time. But because I had one tank, it was my Barbori tank, and it was on a system that was less it didn't have a feed mode. It didn't have any of the things that I have on the other tanks, and it was pretty manual. So she had to literally turn the system off when she fed them. She did great for the week, but then at the end of the week, the very day we were coming home, she forgot to turn it back on, and the lack of oxygen, they passed before I got home. It was devastating. It was awful. So I'm curious, Vincent, if your systems or what systems you have set up. I'm gonna cross my fingers that they're fine. I'm sure you taught. In fact, when I went on that vacation, the next vacation I took, I had someone else do the seahorse sitting, and I updated my tanks so I didn't have to completely turn them off to feed. But I literally did videos of myself. Like, this is how you thaw the food. This is how you rinse the food. This is how you feed. This tank needs it this way. And I these videos. But I also like the idea of cameras and setting up cameras so that you can see, you can check in, and besides that, it's really hard to go on vacation with, especially with adult juveniles. Difficult.
For those of you that know me, my idea of taking a long vacation is going out to my mailbox.
Right.
I'm not leaving my seahorses. Ain't gonna happen.
See, and I'm right there with you, especially when I have Fry.
Yeah.
But man, I deserve my vacations. All right, y'all, come on.
I go overnight now and then, and no one takes care of them. I wake up miss a couple meals while I'm gone because I'd rather have stuff not get screwed up.
Well, and Vincent,
the thing is,
wait, hang on.
I'd be waking up at 2 or 3 in the morning and heading home.
hang on, Vincent can FaceTime, and I'm absolutely right there with you. But like, I just think that having the cameras there, I could check when the person's not even there. Like, I don't know, maybe your family staying at your house. In my case, stay at my house. They just come twice a day or whatever. And so I would just like the safe security of being able to, those where you can look on your phone and see the tank. It would make me feel so.
Make
I'm
sure it's
doing
not overflowing everywhere.
before the next doing cameras. I'm just doing them.
That's what you need Neptune Apex for.
Well, right.
Then
But I mean,
it'll sound off and give you a false alarm on an overflow or drain.
right. And with the Neptune Apex, you can't actually see the tank, right? You can see the levels, you can see the alarms, but you can't see the tank, can you?
No.
Okay.
You would need a separate I know people, I haven't done it since I'm home all the time anymore, but I used to actually have cameras up so I could actually view the tanks on my cell phone when I was at work.
Mhm.
Yeah, good.
Mhm.
Yep, and Vince too also.
Well,
And
they have
definitely,
ones for dogs. Why not seahorses?
right. I would say, Vincent, thanks for tuning in, even though you're off with family. We appreciate you coming for sure. And yeah, okay. Anything else we got to talk about, guys, or should we wrap it up early this week?
I just want Ray J to put the stuff up in
Seahorse Sources group.
your
Oh
sources
wait,
group.
he's trying to come back. I'm sorry, Ray. Well, he's kind of here. He was probably sitting there and I didn't hear him. I'm sorry, Ray. I didn't see you came back. Oh, boo. I'll apologizing to him on the side, but
Maybe computer problems.
maybe, or internet, maybe. But anyways, guys, if there is a topic you want discussed, all you got to do is put a post on the page or message me. If you don't want to say it in the chat, feel free to ask because we're here to talk about anything. And Ray can't access his camera or audio. All right, Ray, we're gonna get that
doing
fixed
Angel
next
Fire.
week. And also, if you want anybody as a special guest, if you're interested in hearing about a topic or you want to see us have someone come on and chat with them, obviously I'm still working on the Ask Seahorse Source Part 4. So I know everybody wants Dan, but he's just been busy. So we'll get that done. But if you want a guest brought on or if you want a topic covered, all you got to do is reach out and we will cover it. And I will make sure to get those links in the description when we're done. But
real quick, funny story about Dad.
Sure.
We've been friends for years. He's been my mentor for a long time. And one day I was leaving work, but I was still on company property, and my phone rang, my cell phone. So I pulled into one of the parking garages and left my car running. Well, he's explaining K1 Media to me and telling me all about it. Okay, now by this time I've got security looking at me and staring at me, and they think something's got awful wrong. Finally, one of the guys comes by, asks me if I'm okay, and I'm not telling him. I'm talking to my friend about seahorses.
Mm-hmm.
And I just said, "Oh, it was a family member, and they just wanted to chat for a moment, and we're fine. I'll be leaving now." Dan almost got me hauled in by security at USAA that night.
Oh, gee.
Yeah, that would have been really that was pretty funny. And of course,
Okay, real quick.
I didn't realize security was freaking out until they started tapping on my window because I was too busy listening to him taking notes.
Yep, I've been there. Hey, Blurram's baby cameras are the bomb. I'm gonna have to look that up. Thank you, Tyann. And Melinda had a quick question. Can you put seahorses in a reef tank? Who wants to jump on?
Can you put seahorses in what?
In a reef
A
tank.
reef tank.
It depends on what's in the reef tank. Zinnia, Nephthia, Singularia. There's a number of corals that are safe. I would not put them in with a large anemone. I definitely would not put them in with a carpet anemone like one guy I saw did. I do know people that have had tubastria and missing pipes or seahorses. Only when they went and started searching the tank the next morning did the organism spit out the deceased scananthid. And I'm the one that got nailed by what were actually pallies that were sold to me as zoos that had been in my tank for over a year and had grown exponentially. And it nailed one of my juveniles who hit the substrate in convulsions. The seahorse did do fine. And I saw another one of my youngsters heading toward the same coral,
Hmm.
and it nailed me. And I spent the next 45 minutes with my arm packed in ice
Jeez.
in agony. And I took them back to the fish store that I got them from, gave them back, and the guy there that was working there didn't believe me. He ended up in the ER.
Jeez. Wow.
Something set them off.
Yeah.
Something obviously irritated them, set them off, and they were on the warpath.
Uh,
So just because they can be nice and friendly and great with seahorses for a year or more does not necessarily make them seahorse safe.
Okay, so here's my answer. My answer is first, there's a few basics, meaning the reason I don't mix reef and seahorses is because in my reef tank I had a mixed reef, and many of the corals needed a higher temperature. We talked about temperature earlier, and as Tyann said, we'll be discussing seahorse basics on Tuesday. Yay! Tank talk with Tyann, be there. But also, I would say so. Temperature is a big key. Can you keep the temperature of the corals that you want to keep under 74 degrees? Also, anything that stings is a no-no, like Cheryl was just describing. And the fish, okay, as we talk about seahorses all the time, they have a different immune system. It's galt, it's very scientific. I'm going to go into the details, but basically they get stressed, they can get sick easier than another. So
Yeah.
the reason that we typically keep seahorses alone and in stick tanks with only a few different critters, like Holly has many different critters and reef-like things in her tank, but it's all about your risk tolerance level. Are you willing to risk the seahorses, or are you, what do you want more? So if you really want just a seahorse tank, stick with just seahorses. But if you want to have different things in the tank, you can. And so I would say temperature, no fast moving or aggressive fish, no stinging coral. And what I would say, I am still, guys, right, that's going to have this stuff spelled out in every way. And the reason it's still trying to get everything in there. But in the meantime, check out Seahorse Sources Group. And I would also say that this is still a very valuable resource, and that is Seahorse. And the discussion board isn't as updated, and some of the information's a little outdated because it's not maintained as much anymore. But they have some really good information about biology. Let me see if I can very quick
they have
breeding.
a list of tank mates
I
on
know, I'm
there.
looking for
I
it.
think it's still there. Yeah, that's really good. It
Like
rates
species.
by numbers.
And I'm trying to do a site that's very similar but updated. But I'm trying to find the tank mate list. Do you guys know where it is?
I haven't looked at it in a long time.
Okay, so here's the tank mate
Hang
guy.
on.
And this guy
You're
is
not
a
there.
seahorse. Hang
Go
on,
down.
hang on, Cheryl.
There
Hang
it
on.
is.
Cheryl, hang on.
You're
This
there.
guy, Kevin, is amazing. I don't know Renee personally, but she probably is too. And it kind of goes.
Actually, she's an RN.
Good. Okay. Well, anyway, 0 means 0 risk in your tank. 1, still pretty safe. You can read it for yourself. But basically, it rates them from fish, coral, everything from bar. They have pictures. So let's say, do we want angelfish with our seahorses? It's threat level 4. So you don't want your seahorses.
They're threatening.
Yeah. So you can literally go through and, sun, we want LPS. No, probably not. You can, but some of them sting, etc. It really goes through it really well. I can't top this even on my site. So I'll probably still refer people here because it's very good. So
there's also on seahorse.org, there's a tremendous amount of information about different techniques people tried. The successful ones have successfully raised some very difficult species to keep up. There's also a lot of information in disease and treatment. There's also information in terms of how to treat different problems that arise. Unfortunately, 99.9% of what I get on a daily basis registering for seahorse.org are spammers. And it's very frustrating. However, if people would go there and read some of this stuff, it actually could prove very helpful. So it's not all the latest state of the art, but it gives them it'll give you an idea of what others have done before and tried, and what did and did not work, and how they evolved from that. Moving forward, it gives you more information to even build a better system.
Right. That's what I was saying, is that I don't even think I don't know if it's because I'm sharing, or I don't even think I can click on like the discussions. Maybe I can. Let's see. Yes, you can.
Yeah,
Then you have to make an account, and it's very outdated. The gallery, or not the gallery, that's very outdated. So just go to Seahorses group with questions, but definitely this still is a very good guide for getting set up, caring for them, tank mates. I think Cheryl's got some articles in here. Cycling. I mean, it's still a very good resource. So definitely.
Yeah.
All right. So that's what I would say. Without, if you, hey Mango, and yeah. So Melinda, like I said, when you get ready to set up your Seahorse tank, the best thing you could do is jump in here. I'll give you a link one week if you want to actually jump in and be on video and talk and ask us question for question. Like, I've got the tank, it's cycled. Can I put this coral in? Because it'll get down to specific. We always say it's hard to give an answer to a broad, like, can you keep seahorses in a reef tank? As Cheryl said, well, that depends. Everything depends. And, do I have to have a skimmer? Well, that depends on how much maintenance you want to do, So there's just always questions upon questions, but love the questions. And we'd love for anyone who wants to jump in and, go back and forth about their tank, their problem, their success, their questions, for sure.
And yeah, it's just one of those things that, to be honest, no matter what you do, it takes time. Once you get into it, to really understand exactly what they need, to be able to say, hey, Bubba, you're looking cross-eyed at me. Are you feeling okay? You're going in a hospital tank. And it's one of those things where it does take time to develop your skills, but it is doable, and it's so rewarding.
Oh, I love seahorses. Love having them. Wouldn't give them up for the world. As I've told you guys before, I kind of let my tanks go after my mom passed, and I had to, amp the tanks that I still had and reset up a new tank, because I'm trying to show that you can keep them in a smaller all-in-one tank too. And, because I couldn't live without them. I thought and I would just say thank you to everybody who comes and shares and asks questions and shares their experiences. Yeah. Join us on Tank Talk with Chlorine on Tuesday. Cheryl, were you saying something?
Comment real quick. There is the only dumb question is the question that you don't ask.
Yeah, there you go. Absolutely. But
I'm
definitely
deadly serious about that.
Yeah.
I would much rather spend 45 minutes with someone on the phone helping them get through something than to find out 2 or 3 weeks later they lost the seahorse.
Yep. And speaking of which, we need to, and speaking of which, we need to follow up with Laura in a couple weeks, see how she's doing with the diatoms, if anything's worked, so we can come back with the answers about that for sure. But you guys, I am going to call it for the night a little early.
But you don't even have to pick up your kids.
But no, they're in the bedroom. That's why I keep banging on the walls. And the wine's almost gone. So gonna close. But Melinda, join us on Tuesday. Tank Talk with Diane. Come back every week. Anybody out there who watches this later, if you ever want to jump in and show us your tank, or talk about your tank and ask questions, or talk about your ideas for a tank, I'm sure you guys get sick of looking at me, Cheryl, Ray, and Holly every week. We do have guests, but I'm sure, anybody who wants to jump in, I'll give you a link, and we'd love to have you jump in and share your experience and ask us questions, or we can ask you questions. We'd love that. This is a community. That's what we're here for. That's why we do Wine Wednesday, right? But for tonight, and I'm sorry, Mango, that we're leaving the second you get here. Come back next week, please. And for tonight, I'm going to say Happy Wine Wednesday and close. So everybody say Happy Wine Wednesday.